You feel it, that tremor beneath the ribs that whispers, not this, not like this, not anymore. The exhaustion isn't just in your body, it's in the scaffolding you built to hold together a self that no longer fits. You are tired in the way a caged bird is tired, not from flight, but from the absence of sky. There is a grief here you do not fully name, a grief for all the masks you wore so well that you now struggle to peel off your own skin. Control once felt like protection, a kind of personal priesthood to your certainty. If you could predict it, you could survive it. If you could tighten the reins, maybe the world would finally stop shaking under your feet. But here you are, hands aching from gripping the rope, shoulders tense from sentencing life to the narrow hallways of what you believe you can bear. Some part of you is already loosening even as another part clings for breath, because the soul grows restless in captivity. Even a golden cage is still a cage. You learn to carry yourself like a fortress, sealed, armored, unbothered, self-contained. Because softness once had a cost you couldn't afford. But now the walls press inward. Now the echo of your own silence grows too loud. Now the longing is stronger than the fear. And though you don't speak it, you know you are no longer meant to hold yourself together the old way. There is a profound unraveling already underway. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, not the kind that announces itself through thunder, a quieter kind. A holy erosion, a dissolving of what once felt unshakable. Not the collapse of you, but the collapse of who you had to be in order to feel safe in a world that felt like a storm. You keep trying to remember the path forward, but the path forward is not a memory. It is a becoming. The mind pleads for coordinates, but the soul is drawing a map made of stars and not sidewalks. You are not being asked to know what comes next. You are being emptied enough to receive it. And so you hover here, between the old skin you've outgrown and the unfurling you cannot yet see. This in-between place feels like exile, but it is actually initiation, a threshold disguised as stillness. Life isn't abandoning you, it is unhooking you from what no longer holds truth. When control dissolves, identity melts with it. And that is why it feels like death. But beloved, this is not death. This is the room just before rebirth, where everything is soft, unwritten, unformed, waiting to breathe through you instead of from you. You are not falling apart. You are falling open. You have mistaken the loosening for losing. You think something is slipping from your hands, when in truth it is being lifted from your burden. You think there is something here you must hold together, but nothing real fractures when it is ready to be lived. The heaviness you feel is not failure. It is friction from trying to remain who you no longer are. There is a point in every soul's pilgrimage where the scaffolding that once stabilized you becomes the very structure that suffocates you. The bones of your own becoming start pressing outward, asking for room, asking for breath, asking to exist beyond the narrow corridors of control. And so life begins its quiet dismantling, not to wound you, but to widen you. Surrender is not collapse, it is space. The sacred vacancy where the divine can finally reach you without having to fight the fortress of your certainty. You learn to survive by understanding, by predicting, and by scanning the horizon for danger before you dare to rest your weight in your own being. But embodiment does not live in the future. It lives in the unguarded pulse of now. And you are relearning trust, not as a concept, but as a bone-deep remembering that life is not here to conquer you, it is here to move through you. Listen closely. This is the sound of the false self unlatching, the invisible shields loosening at the edges, the script you've been reciting starting to skip lines, the part of you that needed control beginning to tire, not because it is wrong, but because it has fulfilled its duty. The you that needed control is not being erased, she is being released. What protected you cannot accompany you into what will grow you. There is a benevolence in this undoing, even if the mind can't decode it. Because beneath the unraveling is a deeper homecoming, a return to the current of life that has always been carrying you, even through the moments you believed you had to drag yourself. Feel the subtle tremor inside your ribs, that tiny pulse of here I am, still here, still breathing, still becoming. That is the soul reacquainting itself with your body, moving in again like dawn through a half-open window. This is the strange mercy of surrender. You do not rise by effort. You rise by making space. You have been taught to equate direction with certainty, but the divine does not move in straight lines. She coils and dances, spirals and softens, unfolds in whispers and timing, never in a hurry, never in doubt. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not lost. You are ripening. You are learning to breathe without bracing, to exist without explaining, to soften without disappearing. The in-between is not your punishment. It is your passage. Not exile, but chrysalis. Not the void, but the womb. Here you are neither who you once were, nor who you are becoming. You are the threshold itself. And thresholds are always guarded by surrender. There comes a moment, subtle, nearly imperceptible, where exhaustion stops being something you fight and becomes something you surrender into, not giving up, but releasing the war. The war against uncertainty, the war against tenderness, the war against needing to know. All this time, you believed you were afraid of what might happen, but you were really afraid of having no control over how you are seen, marching toward it. Control is armor, precision disguised as protection, prediction dressed up as self-safety. But the soul does not architect her life in straight lines and strategy. She speaks in tides, not timelines. You feel the old scaffolding loosening, the inner grip beginning to unthread. The self you once built through tension is now softening through truth. This is the part your mind calls breakdown, but your soul calls threshold. You are not malfunctioning, you are molt shedding. Life is not stealing your ground, it is giving you back your wings. And as the old answers dissolve, as the rehearsed identities loosen, there is a nakedness here, a soft, unguarded trembling. Like standing before the unknown, you are slipping out of an identity that once held you like a skeleton and now presses like a coffin. And yes, there is grief here. Grief for all the versions of you that negotiated their worth, their softness, their aliveness, just to stay acceptable in someone else's weather. Grief for the vigilance you mistook for strength. Grief for how long you lived on the edge of your own exile. Control once made you feel powerful, only because you did not yet remember what power actually feels like. Real power doesn't brace, it allows. Real power doesn't second guess it, it becomes. Real power isn't clenched, it is rooted. This unraveling is not the loss of foundation, it is the loss of illusion. The illusion that you must predict in order to belong, that safety must be earned through performance, that certainty is the price of worth. Without a script, without armor, without choreography, this nakedness is holy. It is the first doorway to trust. You are not meant to understand the next chapter. You are meant to feel it arriving before your mind can name it. Your soul navigates by resonance, not rational. She feels what is coming, the way the body feels thunder before the storm. Not as fear, but as recognition. Some part of you is already bowing inward, slipping into a deeper current, trusting a river you cannot yet see. This is the pivot, the softening, the inward turning, the moment when your spine remembers. It was made to carry light, not load. Nothing is wrong and nothing is going backwards. You are only dissolving a way of living that never matched your becoming. The mystery you once feared is now the very place your soul leads you to rest. You are rehearsing your return to the divine, not through seeking, but through allowing stillness, allowing uncertainty, allowing life to move toward you before you rush to outrun its timing. You are no longer building a future by force. You are letting yourself be carried by the one already forming. Because flow is not something you enter. Flow is something you stop resisting. There is a hush beginning inside you, the kind that doesn't come from silence, but from cessation. The ceasing of the inner chase, the loosening of the lifelong gripping, the way a clenched fist slowly unfurls once it remembers it is not in danger. This is the first breath of surrender, not a doing, a dissolving. Something in you is putting down its sword. Something in you is stepping out from behind the iron gates. Something in you is curious, not about what will happen, but about who you are. When you are no longer bracing for impact, you are entering the soft country beneath control, the hidden garden where your soul never stopped blooming, only waited for your return. For so long, you mistook vigilance for safety, as though awareness of every possible wound could somehow keep you whole. But vigilance is born from isolation. Connection does not require watchfulness, only openness. And slowly, the body is loosening its guard. The breath is widening. The inner sky is clearing. Here, in this quiet, you begin to notice what had no room to speak before, that you have always been held even in the seasons you felt abandoned by the universe. That guidance never left, even when the static of survival drowned out the whisper that the divine has never been distant, only waiting for space. Trust does not arrive with trumpets. It arrives like dew, soft, inevitable, unannounced. You feel it now, this subtle sense of being moved instead of having to move everything yourself. You feel something lifting from your sternum. Not weightless, just less bound. You feel a tenderness at the edges of your chest, like the first warm breeze after a brutal winter, the body half weary, but half willing to thaw. This is not certainty, and yet it feels more like home than certainty ever did. Because certainty is a cage for the soul, but trust is the atmosphere she breathes. And you are beginning to breathe, not the shallow breath of survival, but the slow bloom breath of belonging. You are beginning to sense that life is not a problem to navigate, but a current to soften, a choreography you feel before you comprehend, a wisdom that arrives before language, before logic, before translation. You are beginning to remember that fate is not something happening to you. It is something blooming from you. Here, in this unguarded stillness, identity is less costume and more essence. Here, the soul is not performing. She is inhabiting. You have stepped out of striving and into resonance. You have stepped out of gripping and into gravity. Not the gravity that pulls you down, but the gravity that draws you home. This is the threshold where the breaking becomes birth, where the undoing becomes opening, where trust no longer feels like risk, but like recognition. You are not learning how to let go. You are remembering that you already know how. Surrender is not new to you. You were born surrendered. Before you learned to tighten, you lived as openness. Before you learned to fear uncertainty, you trusted the unseen. Before you were taught to secure yourself, you were softness without apology. The soul is not teaching you something foreign. She is guiding you back to your origin, back to the part of you that does not fear tomorrow, because she lives in the eternal now.